African American community is the only community that has the power in this country to change anything. They are the only ones that are going to save the Latinos.
I now feel for the Black community because I know what it feels like to be racially profiled. I didn't know it before, and I thought it was a little bit of a reach, but now I totally get it. That's what a man came out on here and said, and this is why we should believe victims. This is why we should believe people's stories. This is why we should have empathy, and this is why we should be able to put ourselves in other people's shoes.
And I clap for the African American.
Bravo, bravo. That's what they look at black people as. The help. Not as allyship, just disposable help. Someone that they could put in front of them as a shield. And that's why a lot of these white Cubans left Cuba. It's not necessarily because of politics or ideology. It's because of racial equality. Before the Cuban Revolution, they used to discriminate against black Cubans. It was legal. Black Cubans didn't have access to healthcare or education, and they lived in poorer conditions where they served the white Cubans. After the Cuban Revolution, all that changed. They start promoting racial equality. Black Cubans start having access to healthcare, access to education. And a lot of white Cubans, that made them feel uncomfortable. They were used to the old Cuba, where they had an upper advantage on the black Cubans. They're not going to bring this information up freely. That's why when she says save us, servitude, you're nothing but the help, disposable help. Make my white Cuban life a little bit easier and comfortable since our white savior, Trump, is deporting us.
Because you thought it was a reach. That's what he said. He thought it was a reach when the black community said that they were being racially profiled and they were getting stopped for no reason. And it probably wasn't that serious. But now that Latinos are getting racially profiled, now he gets it. This is why empathy is so important, because you never know when the tables turn. And no, it shouldn't be transactional. It really shouldn't. You should believe people because you should think. You should be able to think outside yourself and be like, if that was me, I would hate that. I don't have to be black to realize that freaking sucks. That what they go through, what they've experienced, sounds painful. That I can't even imagine the years of frustration and honestly, just freaking frustration and anger that they must feel. But guess what? Now Latinos get it. Now. And that is why we are in the situation that we are. Because people don't feel for others until it happens to them.
They said Cubans in Miami is not letting black women that's big in their clubs. They're not letting them in. They're refusing them service. They're saying they're too big and they're too dark. I repeat. Cubans are in Miami telling black women that's too big, they can't come in. Huh? I'm confused. But y'all hate when we make it into a race thing. Why are y'all making it into a race thing? Y'all hate that when we talk about the issues. Why are y'all doing that? Why are y'all doing that? I never been to Miami. I haven't been. Now, no, I'm not that big, but are you going to tell me I'm too dark? Probably. That's crazy. I met some people that was from Miami before. They act stank as hell. They do. They act like they shit do not stink. Like they better than everybody.
This seems to be a more complex matter than just being a political or cultural talk in Miami's landscape. And today, we're gonna look at this matter even further and try to understand why mainly Cubans in Miami and why they feel so entitled. And now that they are finding out that they are not more American than the black Americans. First of all, let's talk about history. Black Americans did not come in as migrants just as the other communities. They were really forced into the United States. If you've read history, through slavery, and they have fought through blood, sweat, they have done protests, they have fought so much to earn that legal status in this country for the longest. This makes them different and completely different than other communities that migrated into the United States. For Cuba, well, we have to look back in the 1966 era of communism and how they were oppressed. Hence, when they were migrated into the United States seeking sort of asylum, they had an act to protect those people who were fleeing communism. And that privilege or that favoritism when they coming in made them think they have a heritage or they are slightly more superior than blacks, forgetting that blacks have a culture. They have already built a culture. Their argument of thinking that there are more Americans than black Americans, I think it's null and void, and it just comes to the issue of racial bias. It's no lie that there are more than one circumstances that these people have, expressed their racism towards the black people. Even from the last speaker, you can see that they are now discriminating against the black community, entering into entertainment sites like clubs and bars. But hey, that is not the only instance that we're gonna touch in this video. There is more to come, so I'm gonna urge you to stick around and listen to more opinions. My name is Danny and I'm gonna be the host for today's show. Sit back and relax because this matter is even going to be interesting. It's not only in Miami, but there are other cities in America that also Cubans feel entitled. And we're gonna see a case of a little bit of Florida, and then we're gonna come back to focus in Miami again and how Miami Cubans are now finding it out that they're not more Americans than the black Americans. Let's go.
Sitting while black in Florida.
I'm sitting outside taking a break. A man rolled up in that truck and then rolled back, and he asked me what company I work for. I don't know who this man is. I did not feel comfortable giving him any of my information, and so now he just took a picture of me and is saying that he's going to call the police. So so here we go. We'll see what happens. This man has a gun. He's now talking to my producer with a gun in his hand. So he's confirming the address with the police. I called my producer because I didn't feel comfortable leaving. A lot of times in these situations, if you leave, you're still in a bad situation. So he has a gun, it's in a holster, and he's talking now to my producer who I had to call. As a rule, I don't give out information, any of my personal information, to someone that I don't know. So now my producer's talking to the police.
I absolutely hate Atlanta weather. But let's talk about anti-blackness in the Cuban community. To understand the anti-blackness within the Cuban community, you have to understand how we even got a Cuban community to begin with. And we can thank colonizers for that. Spanish colonizers, to be exact. Because you see, before the Spanish came to Cuba, what we know today as Cuba, there was a large indigenous population of Taino people. But it wasn't just Taino. I know I don't want to botch this name, but I might. There were the Seboni people and also the Guanahatabey people. No, long story short, there were people there on the land of Cuba before the Spaniards decided that they were going to come here, mass murder everyone, and replace them with African slaves. And that's exactly what happened. But what you have to understand is even though they brought African slaves there, they brought slaves there as slaves, not to be members of society. So the only people who were walking around free and controlling shit were the Spaniards, essentially white people. So, after a couple hundred years of that, you can definitely expect there to be a mixing of some bloodlines, mixing of some ethnicities, and that's how we got Cubans. Now, before I keep going, I don't want you to hear this and think, oh, all Cubans are racist. No, Cuba literally houses so many black revolutionaries from the civil rights era, we cannot ignore that. What I'm saying is anti-blackness runs rampant through their community, though, including the Cubans, not to mention the Cubans in America, which is what this video will be about. But I just wanted to make this disclaimer because I don't want you to think that this is me saying all Cubans are racist. Absolutely not. Cuba has actually been one of the greatest allies as far as the entire Hispanic diaspora. They've been there for us. But it doesn't negate from the fact that they have a bad case of anti-blackness. All right, now I'm pretty sure y'all heard the name Fidel Castro. Now, there is a lot of things you could say about Fidel Castro, but the bottom line is that he was a dictator. He did a lot good for his community, but he also did some bad. And this caused a lot of Cubans to flee Cuba. Because, back home, he was seizing land. He had successfully controlled the media. There was no free speech, food, medicine, and your typical fucking basic goods were becoming scarce.
The stuff coming out about Kenny does not surprise me at all because a Latino being anti-black kind of on brand, honestly. And I'm like very pro Latina, but like being pro Latina is like calling out the shit within our community, and our community can be very anti-black. This is a perfect example, and this is why I don't blame black women for only wanting to date black men, because it's like they're like put in these like horrible situations. And this is also why I understand why black women kind of side-eye black men who only date outside of their race, because yeah, stuff like this, it's like a lot of times when it comes to non-black people, and I noticed this, I'm gonna clock it, I noticed this with a lot of Latinas, they'll fetishize black men, you know? It's like those types of Latinas that like say the N-word all the time and specifically only date black men and get box braids, you know what I'm talking about? But it's like, in the same breath, you do all that and then they're anti-black, or they don't call out the racism in their family and stuff like that. Like, it's just so, I don't know. And I'm not saying that like black people can't be prejudiced towards Latino, that doesn't happen. I get it, but like we're not talking about that. What we're talking about is there is a very like serious like issue within our communities of just being anti-black and colorist. That the whole saying of like, you know, when browner skin Latinos, like during the summertime when they're told like, oh, don't go outside, you'll get darker. Huh? Or hay que mejorar la raza. Huh? Or güeritos más bonitos. Huh? I think it's like we really need to make an effort as a community to start calling out our shit, okay? And honestly, I just feel so bad for Janae, because she is such a beautiful, wonderful, that is a baddie, and she deserves so much better. So yeah, I hate Kenny.
Now that I have addressed the racism within my own community, let's talk about the anti-blackness that exists within the Latin American communities. So I wanted to take my time before I made this video. I knew it was coming, but I had to go out in, the field and ask my people what's going on. So this is what I concluded. When I went to go talk to them, they said that, we don't like African Americans because they feel that we owe them something. I want to make two things clear. First, I want to start off by saying that when we say things like this, we are following the same agenda that we are fighting against. We are fighting against white supremacy and racism. Those ideas that, that we have, the way we think, the way we are taught to fear African Americans, that is the same thing that we are fighting against. It's no different. When we choose to speak like this and participate in these stereotypes, we are no better than the people we are fighting against. And that is a point I want to make very clear to the people within my community, that you guys sound ignorant. We need to figure it out. Where do you truly stand with this? Because, people are right. You can't ask African Americans for help when this is in the real world. That is how they are treated. My second point. Reparations are owed to the African American community. Without them, we would not be able to vote. We would not be able to go to the same schools. We would not be able to sit wherever we want. Let's not forget. They have been fighting for a very long time, since they came here. And us not acknowledging, I know I don't feel that as a country we have paid the respect that they owe. They really do. We owe them everything. It's because of greats. They're great people. Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., the Black Panthers, they paved the way for us. They are the blueprint. And for us to go and participate in the same mentality that we are fighting against, it's just horrible. And it's wrong. If we don't fix this type of mentality and check our people, we are no better than the people we are up against. I want you to know that ignorance is our greatest enemy. So please do not allow yourself to be blinded by hate. I love and respect everybody, and I just want to say that if there's more people in the Latin community who are with me, I need y'all to say something. I need y'all to join the fight with me, because I can't be the only one.
Can I just say that the last speaker, I really commend her work and I really commend her analysis and the fact that she acknowledges that there is a problem in the system, and especially among the Latino community. That is really commendable, because so many people do not want to face accountability. In some instances, when you are fighting for some freedom, or you're fighting oppression, or you're in a bandwagon of some sort of wave, you don't know if you are carrying genuine people or if you're carrying people who are hiding in that wave of positivity. When people are fighting things like white supremacy, or fighting for privileges, or fighting to be treated like people, some other people within the community, they do not have sense. Like, common sense to them is really rare. They come into this wave and start expressing the same thing that people are fighting, which is obviously treating the black community like they are inferior as compared to the Latino community. And it's good that this lady over here has highlighted that, hey, Cubans in Miami, most of them who have aired their views online, seem to be so delusional to a point where they do not realize that what they are doing, or their acts, are the same acts that they are fighting against. When I told you about the history of Cubans coming into America, mark you, that was not like the lengthy history. I was just speaking of the by the way. Most of them came in because they were escaping communism, and when they came to America, they quickly gained influence, especially political influence, where now they started getting political seats, political representations, and hence that quickly got into their head thinking that right now, because we are getting these seats, because we are sitting in the table, now we are superior than them. Now we walk the talk and we talk the talk. And they forget that they found these people here. Some of the rights that they are enjoying were brought by these black Americans in America right now. They really forgot that, and they got drunk in power. Now is the time that most of them are realizing that they are not as American as the black Americans. And we are gonna look at some 3 factors that has made them realize that this is actually real. So one of the things that is making them realize that they are not as American as the American people is the issue of ICE deportations. There's a famous saying that is going around right now. Well, there comes ICE, but not for me. That is a typical black American saying that. Cuban in Miami wouldn't say that, because they themselves now realize that Trump, a person who they voted for, and the party that they support, of course most Cubans in Miami support Republican Party and they voted for it. The party and the person they voted for is now deporting them. Look, they're now being treated like second-class citizens and they're not liking it. They're now realizing that, hey, maybe we are not. The next thing is the legal status and also cultural belonging. When you talk about the legal status, it's the issue of citizenship. This is a point that black Americans now win, because they themselves were born in the United States of America. Cubans in Miami, most of them came in through immigration. They have to wait patiently for years in order to get approved to get a green card, and then some more years in order to get citizenship, which is getting harder by the day. And yet black Americans are there, they're giving birth, they do not need work visas and things like that. They already dealt with that when they were fighting for their freedom, fighting oppression back in the days. Cubans are now realizing that, hey, these people are already rooted into the system. When I talk about the cultural belonging, is that we all know about the black culture and how it's so grown. It's undeniably one of the biggest in the United States, and I'm gonna talk about influence in my next segment. When you compare the black culture and you compare the Cuban culture, even if you talk black and Latino, you realize somehow black culture is somehow so much rooted than even the Latino culture. Even to this day, Cubans are really struggling with revocation of these rights. Like, let's say the right to bring them in as people who are escaping communism. Some of these rights are being revoked. We've seen previously, like in the past few months, there are some rights that are revoked by Donald Trump himself, now even making the Cubans exposed to ICE deportations. These cultures are completely different. And then the next thing is social media and influence. Social media and influence comes about when I told you that I was going to touch about influence in my next segment. Yes, this is now the point where I talk about the black culture influence. It's no lie that across the world, everyone realizes that black culture is something that is hyped. When the music comes about, it's the black community that pushes it. When a movie comes in, black culture, style, hip hop, the rap culture, there's a taste in fashion, things like that. Fashion is something subjective. I'm not saying that entirely that, but you know, some or majority of the black culture have taste in fashion, and it influenced the other parts of the world. Go even to Africa, go even to Asia, you'll find murals, you'll find graffiti of popular or famous black people. They are all known and liked and idolized in these regions. It just paints the image of how the black community across social media has influence. You see the music, the way it's pushed and consumed. TikTok, social media influence is just crazy. I've seen social media posts of Cubans who now realize that black community is a big thing, and some of them even regretting their stance or their ideology of thinking that they are superior than the black community. Some of them even regretting how they alienated or they segregated black community previously, and now they're being treated as second-class citizens. When we started this video, we saw those two women who are doing interviews saying that it's only a black community that can save them in their protest against ICE raids. Black community would wonder, why would we involve ourselves in this thing, and yet you people have already expressed your stance about us. You've expressed how you feel about us, how you see us, how you feel like we are less of human beings than you, how you do think that we are the enemies, and now you want us to fight your fight. Like, we are not doing that. Cubans are realizing that. But hey guys, that's a lot to unpack. I'm really hoping we've learned something, and we've also exposed ourselves to things that if you are from these different communities, you can see. If you are Black American, you can see why these Cubans or Latinos are saying this, and if you are Latinos, you can see why the black community or the black Americans are reacting in a certain way. So it's high time these communities come together, have a broader conversation, and just live together peacefully, because at the end of it all, they're fighting the same fight, not to be treated like second-class citizens, not to be racially discriminated, and not to have racial stereotypes and racial bias against them. This is the forum that I leave up to you guys to share your opinions and thoughts in the comment section down there below. Your thoughts will be really insightful and helpful to people who are passing through and trying to understand this subject or this matter. Also, don't forget to go and check the original creators. Go on to their TikToks, follow, like. Their usernames have been embedded in the Stitch videos as always. For this video, make sure you smash a huge thumbs up button, consider subscribing to the channel, turn on post notifications so that you may not miss my next upload. And with that guys, let me meet you in the next one. Peace out.